Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing something a little bit different in that technically this is a haul, but this is a bookshop haul. So these are books that I have specifically bought in for Waypoint Books. Now if you weren't aware, Waypoint Books is my business. It started during lockdown of last year. The website went up a couple of weeks ago, and essentially I am an independent bookshop recommending you diverse, accessible reads that you will enjoy. I have no other agenda other than to recommend you books that I think you'll actually like, as opposed to a set list that I need to promote, and doing that through my content but also through the website. There are blogs on there, you can request specific recommendations from me. We have two kinds of subscription boxes as well which go out every month. The first is the Half Moon box, and basically I send you a recommendations list of 2 or 3 books. You pick which books you think sound the best and you order that for yourself, and it kind of comes to you at the beginning of every month. And then a Full Moon box, you get that book that you've chosen and you get a second additional book that is a complete surprise that you know nothing about, and again I pick that for you based on books you've ordered from me before, or books that I've seen you read before, or we've discussed before, or if I've just completely gone full FBI mode and stalked your Goodreads, whatever it is, I'll base my recommendations on that for you. So as I said, I pride myself on making sure that the books I sell are accessible, diverse, and actually worth recommending. We're not going to be recommending authors that show toxic behaviour or anything like that. And basically I'm going to organise the books that I show you today into 3 categories. The new releases that came out in March or just towards the end of February, the books that were recommended to me via YouTube that I got in specifically for Waypoint, and the books that I'm like, you need to read these or they're on my radar because I recommend them. So I've got just about 50 books that I want to share with you. I did consider doing videos like this quarterly, but considering I had to narrow down the books I bought in March to 50 to talk about as opposed to just all of them, we're gonna go with that because otherwise I will be here forever. Something that I want to do in the future is I want to support more book clubs. I currently have 2 book club books that I will go through with you in a minute, but both of those book club books are books that are discounted for those book clubs. So if you run a book club, or if you know of a book club that could do with some discounted books, please let me know. But just to cover the ones that I currently do already, I am doing the DeaDFamous Readalong, which is where we read the Skullduggery Pleasant books. Currently, the 3rd one, the Faceless Ones, is available via the DeaDFamous Readalong Discord, where you can get a discounted copy of this. It will be available on the website as standard if you don't want to be part of the read-along, but if you want to jump on that Discord and get the discount code, that is where you will find that. This is a middle grade about a young girl called Valkyrie who is kicking butt and taking names, solving crimes as a sidekick to a skeleton detective called Skullduggery. It is perfect for fans of Doctor Who and Sherlock and that kind of Muppet type banter. It's set in Ireland and it's one of my favourite reads. The more I read of this series, or certainly reread of this series, the more I fall in love with it. I just think it's absolutely fantastic. So that's the first one. The second one is the Library of the Unwritten. This is a kind of gothic-y hellscape library where the books are coming to life and causing all kinds of shenanigans. I've been told really, really great things about this, and this is the book for the Lamentable Libarary for April. If you want the discount code for this, you will have to go through the Discord, but if not, it will just be available via the website, and the links will be down below. I'm not going to put all the individual links for all the books because honestly, who has the time? But feel free to have a scroll through. Like I said, this is only 50 of the 200 or so books that are currently available at my shop, so feel free to have a look through, and if you want any recommendations, let me know. So let's start with the new releases. I'm not going to spend too long going into what they're about, but I'm just going to let you know why I got them in as new releases. So the first one is Act Your Age, Eve Brown. This is an author of colour romance with POC and neurodivergent rep. Eve Brown is autistic. This follows Eve kind of helping her love interest with a B&B, and I love a B&B as a trope. I read Get a Life Chloe Brown and absolutely loved it. Take a hint, Danny Brown. I keep selling. Every time it comes onto my shelves, I keep selling, but Act Your Age, Eve Brown has literally just come out, so I'm really excited to have that on my shelves. That's the first one. The second one is Amari and the Night Brothers. This is a middle grade, author of colour, POC rep. This is about a young girl called Amari whose brother goes missing and she has to go on crazy adventures to save that. I just want to say, It is the most stunning hardback I have seen in a while. Like, it's beautiful. We've got shiny font on the front. You can't really see it because unfortunately it never comes up on the camera, but you have silver sprayed edges, and the underside of the hardback is just so pretty. This is currently the middle grade monthlies reads, I think for either March or April. These have been going really quickly, so if you want to get yourself a copy, do so quickly because they're really pretty and they just keep going. They just keep going. I have two Greek retellings that I want to share with you. The first is a paperback called The Wings of Fury. This is about a young girl who basically has to destroy the monsters in Greek myths. It's brand new out. I haven't heard of the author before. I think this might be a debut, but it's perfect for fans of like Circe and the Song of Achilles, so I'm really intrigued by this one. The other Greek retelling is Pandoras Jar. This is an actively feminist retelling, and I don't know if it borders onto the non-fiction style of writing, because I know that Natalie Hayes is a reporter or a journalist, broadcaster, which I think is covered by all of those words I've already used. But again, absolutely stunning hardcover and perfect for fans of Greek myths. We also have A Court of Silver Flames. This is the fourth one in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. Do I even need to tell you about this one? It was so highly anticipated that every time I get a copy in, it goes. So if you want this last copy that I have before I put another order in, let me know. We also have the Gilded ones, which is an author of colour, and I think it has LGBTQ rep as well. Fantasy about a young girl who kind of comes into her power and then learns to use that power. It has real kind of like Children of Blood and Bone vibes, which I'm really excited about. I think the second one's out. I'm waiting for the third, but in the meantime, happy to use this one as like an in-between. I have been told that it airs onto the side of middle grade as opposed to YA, so it's on that end of the spectrum, but we enjoy how green in general that is. It just looks really fun and I'm really intrigued by that one. We also have The Bridge of Souls, which is the third in the Cassidy Blake trilogy arrive. Now, whilst this series in itself wasn't really for me, like it was fine, I enjoyed it, but it wasn't my favourite. I cannot get over how stunning these are together. So I'm gonna be a complete hypocrite and be like, whilst it wasn't my favourite read of all time, I just think those all together, I want to recommend you anyway, just so that you can enjoy how beautiful those paperbacks are on your shelves. So I'm not saying you should buy a book for its cover, but if you do, this is the one. I also got All Boys Aren't Blue. It's a weird one because technically it is a new release in that it has recently come out as paperback in the UK, but I know that out in the US it has been out for a while. This is a memoir about George M. Johnson, LGBTQ rep, author of colour rep. I've heard really fantastic things, but again, keeps coming in, keeps going out. Haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I've heard really good things. So I put it in the new releases pile as opposed to on my radar pile, but it could bridge both of those, to be honest. And again, absolutely stunning front cover. Love that. The Cost of Knowing by Brittany Morris, I need to review for NetGalley and haven't quite got around to yet, but I'm really excited for this one. Brittany Morris is the author of Slay, which was the contemporary that came out last year regarding a young girl who creates an online gaming forum for people of colour. This one looks at two young brothers living in Chicago and deals with police brutality and stuff like that, so trigger warnings for that. I do believe it's still a YA, and I'm really intrigued by this because I really enjoyed Brittany Morris's style of writing, so I'm highly anticipating this one as well, and I really enjoy the front cover. I just think that's really pretty, so really intrigued by this one, but I have a sneaky suspicion it's going to certainly be more triggering than the last one was. In Slay, it's quite a passive protagonist. I imagine that's not going to be the case in this instance. I also have As Far As You'll Take Me. This is about a young man called Marty who heads overseas to London and finally is able to explore his sexuality and his identity. It gives me real The Black Flamingo vibes, in the idea that once you're able to escape your family, you're finally able to fully express who you are and get into your own head. If that sounds like a familiar name to you, it is the same author that gave us The Gravity of Us. So I'm, again, really intrigued by that one, and obviously LGBTQ rep. I imagine there will be trigger warnings for homophobia, because if he's escaping something, then I feel like there's something he needs to escape. So just as a heads up going into that one, I think that's that one. We're now going to go into the books that were recommended to me either via YouTube indirectly or specifically people thought I should get in for the shop, because I'm more than happy to take in recommendations. If you think there's a book worth having on my shelves, I want to know about it. So the first one is The Push. I am in like a little buddy read group of writers from my university course, and the girls just will not stop talking about this. This is a thriller about a mother and daughter. That's literally all I know about it. So I've heard it's really psychological, I've heard it's really, really compelling, and I'm intrigued by this one. The next is The Burning Girls, which I have seen on quite a few YouTube channels regarding thrillers. This is about a family who arrive in Chapelcroft trying to escape their past, and they find that another past, a much darker past, is there waiting for them, but there is lots of like, it just sounds really, really intriguing. So we got that one in as well. Beyond the Black Door, I know Molly has definitely recommended this to me anyway, so I'm pretty sure this is in the Perfectly Queer book club's pick as well, which is why it was recommended. I have gone into this completely blind. I'm going off on the fact that Molly and I have very, very similar thrillery gothic taste. This has LGBTQ rep as well, and I'm really intrigued by it. That's it, that's what I've got for that one. Really intrigued by that one. Red Sister, I spotted on Becca in the Books video. She's done a whole vlog where she reads it, and she says it's very, very similar to Nevernight. And I am desperate to find books similar to Nevernights that aren't Nevernights to read. This is about a young girl who goes to a convent, but rather than training to be a nun, she's training to be an assassin. So it has very much assassin school vibes, and I'm really, really intrigued by this one. It looks really spooky and gothic, and we love that for me. So there's that one. The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. Again, every time I get this in, it goes out immediately, so I'm having to film this really, really quickly because someone has just ordered it, so I need to send this out. This is a sci-fi about a woman who is trying to escape her past, and she joins the Wayfarer, which is a spaceship going out to, I don't know, do something. The crew are offered a job of a lifetime, and she goes on an adventure, but essentially I think this is far more introspective, quite literary in that way, and I've heard really, really good things. I know that the fourth one has just come out, so I think because the new one has just come out as well, people have started picking this up again, so I wanted to get it in so that I could read it, and again it just keeps going. So there's that one. Black Sun, again I know very, very little about. This is a fantasy with an author of colour and POC rep. I think this also has LGBTQ rep, but I'm not entirely sure, but it was another one that I just kept seeing everywhere. So I feel like when I see it enough times, it's enough of a recommendation that I need to check it out. So it's kind of, again, recommendations, but it's on my radar level recommendations. Really, really intrigued by this one. Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Riley Sager is everywhere, again, and this is the one that seemed most intriguing to me, so wanted to have that on my shelves. When No One Is Watching, I mean, if you watch YouTube, you'll know that this was Kayla's from Books with Lala, her book club pick. This is a thriller that looks at gentrification. It's quite a slow-paced thriller. It gives me gothic vibes in the fact that it's quite subtle and slow-paced, but it looks at microaggressions and racism. It's an author of colour with POC rep again. I don't know if there's LGBTQ rep in this, but I've heard that it's really, really dark, but really, really intrigued by this one. And then Sophie Anderson follows me on Twitter, and she's always supporting me, so I wanted an opportunity to support Sophie Anderson as well. Castle of Tangled Magic is a middle grade. Again, haven't quite had a chance to get to this yet, but it has been, my copy has been sat for a while, so I wanted to get a copy in for Waypoint because I know the moment I start talking about this, it's going to go as well. So really, really intrigued by this one. This is by the author who wrote The Girl Who Speaks Bear and A House with Chicken Legs. So fun middle grade fantasies, which we love. So now we're going to move on to the books that I can directly recommend to you and can give you a bit more information about, because these are ones that I bought in specifically to recommend. So the first one is Susanna Clarke's Piranesi. Now this is, I've just said that I picked these so that I can recommend them to you. Can't tell you what happens in this one without giving away the entire ending. It's a really kind of like psychological adventure about a man who is kind of living this day-to-day life in this whimsical world that the more he comes to understand, the darker it becomes. It's really, really clever. I really, really enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend this for people who enjoy Madeline Miller's style writing, or if you've read the other Susanna Clarke book, which is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, I believe it's called. But it's actually a really, really short read. I found it really, really compelling, and would definitely, definitely recommend this to everybody. The next one that I would recommend is Chloe Gong's These Violent Delights. It's still out as a hardback rather than paperback, so it is chunky, but this is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. However, it is set in 1920s Shanghai. You have the Kais as opposed to the Capulets, which are the Chinese drug dealers, and then you have the Montagovs as opposed to the Montagues, which are the Russian drug dealers. They are fighting for territory in Shanghai Roma and Juliet have already had their relationship and broken up, so there is a very much an enemies to lovers type narrative in this. But to add an additional plot twist to the original tale, there is a monster lurking in the city that is driving people mad and causing them to kill themselves. So it is brutal, it is dark, definite trigger warnings for violence and blood and things like that. It gets very graphic very quickly, which I obviously love because I'm a dark twisted mess, but I really, really enjoy this, and I just think I had to have it on my shelf to share with you guys. A graphic novel for something a little bit different, we have The Sad Ghost Club. This is a graphic novel about mental health and being depressed and isolated. So trigger warnings for mental health representation there, but I just found this a really charming and not patronising at all look at mental health and how isolating it can be when you don't feel motivated to socialise and how abandoned you can feel in social situations. The Sad Ghost Club is a real thing based on Instagram as well, so I would definitely recommend that, and Liz Meddings has done an excellent job with this graphic novel. Would recommend to everybody who's feeling either a little bit lonely or a little bit stuck, especially in lockdown when we've had a really hard time, so would definitely recommend that one. Again, something for a little bit different, some poetry for you if you're into poetry. I Would Leave Me If I Could by Halsey. Halsey is obviously the massively popular pop star, and I actually found her poetry really intriguing because you can see that kind of lyricistness in them, if that makes sense. Lots of trigger warnings for sexual assault, sexual violence, trauma, all kinds of things in this one as well, especially considering it's poetry, so it just hits different sometimes when it's poetry. But I really, really enjoyed it, and if you're not sure if you're a poetry fan but you like Halsey's music, I would definitely recommend this as just a way of kind of like an intro into poetry. Some poems are definitely better than others, like a few of these genuinely just, they got me, but some of them are so openly, opinionatedly feminist that I just laughed. I just thought they were wonderful. So a real range of emotions tucked into this teeny tiny little anthology. So would recommend that one as well. The next on my recommendations list is Girl A. This has been pitched as a thriller, but I'd argue it's not really a thriller so much as it is a psychological contemporary. Girl A is about a young girl who is one of 6 children who was abused as a child and then put into foster care. And the story starts with her basically taking on her parents' house, the house that she was tortured in, and kind of what she's going to do with that. And she goes through and speaks to each of her siblings, and there is a bit of a plot twist at the end that I'm not going to spoil. It's not really a thriller in the traditional sense. There are thriller moments in it, and again, massive trigger warnings for sexual assault, sexual abuse, physical abuse, child abuse, trauma, mental health, blood, all kinds of things. So please be warned going into this for those. But I did find this story really, really compelling. It's quite a slow-paced story, which is why I find it so interesting that it's called a thriller, but I think it's stunningly written, and I believe this is Abigail Dean's debut as well, so we'll definitely be keeping my eye out for any other Abigail Dean books because I really, really enjoyed this, and now I think everyone should go away and read it. Love is for Losers is a romance with an autistic coded main character who just doesn't understand what everyone is so obsessed with love for. What's the point? What is the point in being in love? It's a waste of time, everyone keeps talking about it, she doesn't really get it until she falls in love with the girl who works at the charity shop she volunteers at. It also looks at grief and kind of abandonment stuff, abandonment issues and things like that, but it's really wholesome, it's really lovely, I really, really enjoyed it, and it has very much Adrian Mole vibes to it because it's written in like this diary type way, so I really, really enjoyed that. It's a really cute little YA, and again, I don't know if I covered that, but LGBTQ rep as well, so would recommend that one. And then another LGBTQ rep romance. This is an enemies to lovers fantasy romance with a sapphic main character. This is also I didn't realise this until I got to the end of it, but it's a Phantom of the Opera retelling where basically this young girl can use her voice to torture people. It's very dark. I thought these characters were morally grey until I explained it to someone else, and they were like, no, they're just horrible. They're not morally grey, they're just horrible. So if you like horrible characters like I do, then this is definitely the one. I only have 2 copies of this left, so if you want it, you're gonna have to move very, very quickly because it only came out in the US in January, and every time it comes available, there's only like 2 copies available, so I snapped it up as soon as I can. So absolutely love this and have been physically throwing it at people to read. It's just spectacular. The writing style I just absolutely love. My only criticism is that it is not part of a series. It's a standalone, so I don't get any more of it. That's my only criticism. To finish off this little list, I'm just going to quickly run through some books that are on my radar, books that I bought in for Waypoint because they just sound really intriguing, but I haven't read them yet, so they are not overt recommendations, and I don't know what the trigger warnings are for a lot of them, so just to bear that in mind. The first one is The Seep, which has Annihilation type vibes to it, where the Seep are an alien force who have gently taken over the planet. The main character is called Trina, and she's a 50-year-old trans woman, so there's LGBTQ rep in this as well, and her partner becomes part of the Seep and becomes reborn without her. So it looks at grief and trauma and things like that, but I don't know if there are any more trigger warnings than that. It just sounds really intriguing, and the front cover is just so spooky that I'm just really intrigued, and it's quite a short read as well. So that one is on my radar. Anna K by Jenny Lee is an author of colour doing a retelling of Anna Karenina, but set in Manhattan, and it just looks really fun and colourful, which, considering I think the actual Anna Karenina story is tragic, is intriguing me even more, just because of how colourful and happy it looks. But there's that one. The Stormcrow I've heard literally no one talk about, but it looks like something we would all really enjoy. It's a YA fantasy with an author of colour. I think it has LGBTQ rep in it. It might not, but it just looks really interesting, and I do quite like a source books read, so there is that one. Darius the Great Deserves Better. Again, I've seen this around, but I haven't seen many people talk about it. This is another LGBTQ author of colour rep as well. Yeah, about a young man who travels back to Iran to try and find something about his heritage and his family, and just ends up with more questions. But it looks really, really intriguing, and maybe a love triangle. The front cover implies love triangle as well, so possibly. It's on my radar. I haven't got to it yet, but I'm intrigued. I got the full Broken Earth trilogy in. I had every intention of reading the 5th season last month and then just ran out of time, ran out of month. But obviously the full 3 sets are there, and I thought, why not? Why not get all 3 in just in case? Because if someone wants the first one, I'm going to need the second 2, because you're going to really enjoy it. N.K. Jemisin seems to be loved by everyone. I've heard they're really, really intense, and I know that the first one certainly has trigger warnings for child death. So just as a heads up about that. But there's those. Given is an Enemies to Lovers Wattpad Awards winner, YA, author of colour, dragons. I don't know any more than that, because to be honest, I got to there and was just like, sold. Love that. So again, this is another one that every time I get it in, it goes, so be quick if you want that one. And then the last 3, I don't really know that much about, but I was just really intrigued by them. We have The Dog Share, which is a romance about a couple who meet by sharing a dog. That seems pretty straightforward. Asking for a Friend, which is about 3 women who are all different ages, they're all in terrible relationships, and they've all decided that they absolutely hate online dating. So when they try to start asking each other's guys out for them, it turns into shenanigans, and it's written by Andy Osho, who is a fantastic black comedian that I absolutely love, so was really intrigued by that one. And then The Long Dark Road. This is about a woman whose daughter goes missing, and 5 years later there's still no information on her whereabouts. The police have given up, so the mother goes looking for her instead, and it just sounds like a really, really intriguing thriller, because horrible things start to happen. So that is it. Wait, it isn't. Oh, the other one is Perfect on Paper. This is an LGBTQ YA about a young girl who is in love with her best friend, and someone finds out and then basically blackmails her into helping him get the girl that he wants. So lots of teenage drama. It has been compared to Becky Albertalli, Jenny Han, and it just sounds really, really intriguing. And I love how bright orange it is. You know, you're going to see that from a mile away. So there you have it. There is my haul for Waypoint. So if there are any books on this list that seem intriguing to you or you're interested in, please click those links below and support my content. And yeah, buy independent rather than spending all your money on Jeff Bezos, who frankly doesn't need it. Let me know if there are any books that you would like me to get in for Waypoint for April. I will do another wrap up of these at the end of April, but it won't include any of these books because honestly, who has the time? Other than that, I hope you're having a nice week, and I will see you next time. Have a nice day.